Yeah, we were in Radical Jack together.
You did Radical Jack?
Yeah, I
You
was.
must have
Yeah, I had the ponytail then.
you must have been really young.
Yeah, it was in 2006 or five or four or seven, somewhere in there.
Were you were you the part of the bad guy group that was
I
I
was the
was?
guy. I was the bodyguard that stands outside the
Yeah.
plane, and then I go in there. And I'm the first guy that gets shot in the warehouse.
Yeah, yeah, I remember the where I blew up in the
Yeah,
warehouse.
you
That's what I
you
died. Yeah.
caught a grenade.
Wait, so
Right.
you two were in the same movie, but you don't
Yeah,
remember,
man.
like you don't remember
I remember
when
him,
you were.
but I
Yeah,
was just
well,
a
I mean,
kid, like
I
basically.
remember you now. No, I remember you. You weren't you dressed in black, like
Oh yeah, well, I
yeah,
always dressed in black, but yes, yeah, I got squibs and everything. It was cool because it's the
yeah,
first time and last time I've ever been squibbed, were the bullets, and they don't have a big budget, so they'd be like, "Okay, you sure you got this?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Okay," because we only have one T-shirt, and I was like, "Okay," and so at action, I just went like this, and it worked somehow.
yeah.
It was
But me during that, I was in New York doing stuff, so that was a very integral part of my education and how to do that stuff.
Oh yeah. It was fun to be on the set because he was kind of new also, so you could watch the learning process, and he and David took to it so quickly, and he
Yeah,
was he's so good at organizing a set,
yeah.
a shoot. Oh my god. Were you in any of the were you in like Me, Myself, and Irene and What Lies Beneath were both came to Vermont? Did you do anything
Right.
on those?
No, I didn't. I mean, no, I was in New York doing stuff, and I kind of missed auditions or whatever. And but no, I wasn't. Yeah, were you?
I did. Yeah, I was crew, but but it
Yeah,
was great. I mean, great pay on those sets. I
yeah.
got to I almost hit Harrison Ford with a fly swatter by accident.
Did you?
Yeah. I was a fly wrangler on What Lies Beneath. So
Hey, man, it's all important. And, I worked on a movie that Harrison Ford was in called The Devil's Own. Brad Pitt was in it.
mm,
And I was a stuntman on that movie, hired in 2 weeks in Brooklyn night shoots. And I got to work with Brad Pitt. But Rena, you probably know this too. That was a huge thing for me because the cinematographer was Gordon Willis, who was the cinematographer on The Godfather 1, The Godfather 2,
Oh wow.
Manhattan, what is that? I worked with Gordon Willis, man. It's just, these are things that aren't braggadocio. They're just things that I can say to myself, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah.
oh yeah,
But I didn't meet
definitely.
Harrison Ford. I didn't work the days that he worked.
Ah, yeah, he's pretty cool.
I bet.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Now, when you were in New York, I didn't know this either. You were on Saturday Night Live?
When you're in
Yeah.
New York, I don't know if it's like this in LA, Reno, or whatever. When I went to New York, excuse me, people said, they said, don't do extra work. Well, why not? Because then you'll get kind of stuck in that extra work situation, and people just get stuck there, and that's all they do. So okay, I won't do extra work. And I was getting enough commercials and little TV spot. So then my agent called and said Saturday Night Live is looking for a country-looking guy. There's two feuding families. This is a great little story. There's two feuding families uh, in the woods trying to get the same water, and they want some extras. And so I said to my agent, nah, I don't want to do extra work. I hung up the phone, called back. I said, this is Saturday Night Live. You might meet someone on that set. You might get to then do it, be on inside sometime. That'd be a great experience. So I called up and they said, yeah, we want you. So I showed up, and all those fake commercials in the early years of Saturday Night Live were directed by a guy named Jim Signorelli, very famous guy. And so now I'm on the set with Jim Signorelli, and they call all the extras out. They say, come out here in the parking lot. We want to line you up and set you where we want to set you and have you play the parts we want you to play, even though they're background. So Will Ferrell was the head of one of the families, and he was new then. And Chris Farley was there. So I see Will Ferrell. Again, he wasn't Will Ferrell, but I knew he was on that show. So I stood near him, and Will Ferrell and I are the same height. And Signorelli was looking at people go, yeah, you wear this, you're going to stand over there by the lock. And he said, he pointed at me, he said, you shadow Will, you're his right-hand man in this commercial spot that we're filming. So that means that I'm going to be in a 2-shot with a lead. That's more money. That takes you from an extra to a co-star. So I called the agent up, payphone, said, hey man, I think they got me, so then they want to talk to the producer. So I got more money, but that thing ran and ran and ran. So yeah, now I'm doing the Logger, the early years of the Logger. I've been in Black Dog with Patrick Swayze. I've been in Saturday Night Live. So I go to the schools and talk. I go to the banquets. I'm this guy that's been on Saturday Night Live, and so all these things. So that's how that happened, and I wouldn't have done it, but it worked out great. But I was smart enough. I was like, I'm gonna stand right next to Will Ferrell, man. And Signorelli said, "Yeah, you guys look good together."
Oh yeah, that's a
That
skill.
was really savvy that you
Yeah.
knew to do that, to position yourself right in the right place at the right time.
Kind of an introvert, kind of quiet. I don't say much. So on those sets when I was new, I would just be looking at stuff. And if you had an instinct, you went for it. Sometimes the instinct wasn't right. Well, that time it worked out. But that's how I got on Saturday Night Live, Jason. And I never got the call to be an extra in the studio, which would have been a gas.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, you're a very striking person. You have a lot of your features. I mean, if you're in a room, there's Rusty. I mean, before we knew who you were, but you just are striking in general. Like you have a lot of features that make people look at you.
Well, I was landscaping one summer with this guy, this Vermonter guy, and he knew, and I was been in New York trying to be an actor, and he's a buddy of mine, old Vermonter. And he said, after work today, I'm going to do some work for the soap opera actor who lives in Stowe Hollow. You want to come? And I didn't have an agent or anything. I was just trying. And I said, no, I don't want to work after work. He said, well, you don't want to meet this guy? I said, yeah, I'll meet him. So I go up, and there's this guy named Benjamin Hendrickson who'd gone to Juilliard. John Houseman was his mentor. And Mark says, there's my buddy Rusty. He's trying to be an actor. And Benjamin is about 45. He looks at me, he said, yeah, you have a good look. That's what you're saying. And I didn't know that. And I said, what? He says, you could be a tough guy, a country bumpkin, a cop. You're very saleable. When you get back to New York in the fall, give me a call. This is how I got commercials. This is no shit. That's how I got my agent by landscaping in Stowe, Vermont. He said, you give me a call, literally.
Wow.
And I'll hook you up with my agency, commercial agency. Right. So what did I do, Arena? Yeah, I called him. And he said, yeah, Sue King is her name. She works at J. Michael Bloom. I met Sue King, 2 auditions, and I'm flying to Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, doing a commercial for Renault, where I met Polly Perrette. She was on that. And then in another 3 weeks, I was going to LA to do a Kellogg's Cornflakes commercial, all me. I literally got my commercial agent by landscaping. But he did say,
Wow.
you're very saleable. Well, from my opinion, everybody's very saleable. You know what I mean? But everybody has a look. But
I was like, what does that mean?
No, I don't agree with that at all. There's a lot of if you in Vermont, a lot of people look just like the last person you saw in Vermont. And probably everywhere it's like that. Not everybody has a look.
Yeah, how do you define a look, right? Like who has it, who doesn't?
Charisma. Well, for instance, I was in a movie with James Coburn, and he has a look.
Right.
All right, my acting coach. This is meant to be taken as just a label. It doesn't mean sex, but he said it's called fuckability.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Like he goes, Gene Hackman, fuckability. It doesn't mean you want to have sex with him. It's just what you need to be in movies and get cast. You can't not have that to, succeed.
Yeah. And I think Benjamin was saying, in my case, Rena, specifically, this mug is a cop. This mug is a bad guy. This mug is a country boyfriend. This mug is I did 4 Chevy ads, like a rock. This mug is the guy that has the 2 little kids and drives the truck with the cowboy hat on and stuff. That's what this mug and the physical. So it's not only a look, but saleability with that look.
You're also the creepy guy that eats worms.
Oh, yeah, that was cool. That was cool.
I
that
can
shot.
now, like talking to you, looking at, I can see all of these things. The trucker, the creepy guy eating worms, the cop. I can see it.
Yeah, and I think some people, the look is saleable maybe just for one thing. You know those commercials where it's the nebbish guy, he always plays the nebbish guy, and you kind of go, I've seen that guy in other nebbish guy parts. The guy's not going to be the cop. He's going to be that guy, or maybe the kid on the, the third buddy of the guy. But hey, do you guys mind if I light up a stogie?
I'm cool with it.
No.
Yeah, it's
I'm
called
not in the room.
it's that's your Who Am I? That's the did you take any acting lessons actually? That's a good question actually, because
Right, good. I was down there, I was like 34. Bill was still alive, and I was kind of like, no, I'm doing this job. This is a fascinating job. You can't even believe it, if I told you. But anyway, I got to get into acting. I'll name drop again. Here's a story. I got to get into an acting class. Why? I had been acting. You can always learn. You can always study. Because I wanted to see what the vibe was, what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. So I called my friend John Fusco, who lives in Stowe, good friend. And he's huge. He's big. Look him up, Rena. John Fusco, screenwriter.
Yeah,
Young
writer.
Young
Children
Guns.
of the Gods. Is that right?
I don't think so. Young Guns 1 and 2, The Babe, Hidalgo. What was that one, the Bonnie and Clyde one that was out recently with Woody Harrelson and anyway, he's huge. He was doing Thunderheart with Val Kilmer and Sam Shepard at the time. And I said, John, man, I want to get into an acting class, but I don't want to be like with a bunch of 18-year-olds. He said, I'll talk to Bob. He was producing Thunderheart with Robert De Niro. I'll talk to Bob and ask him what's a good class for a 34-year-old guy who's done stuff. So De Niro tells him George Loris. He does private classes. I get George Loris's assistant's number. He says, come meet George Loris downtown. I go to this dark, dingy theater, and his assistant says, sit up on that stage. So George Loris, this guy, a posing guy, comes down. Again, I'm still like, I'm new to this. He sits down and he goes, now, who recommended me to you? And I said, well, I got a friend who's a screenwriter, and he's producing something with Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro. So he's like checking me out. I said, well, he's a friend of my friend. And he said, you're the guy. And Laura said, well, we do scenes here. And at the end of 3 months, I invite industry people in. This class, the people are experienced already. I don't know if you are. So if you want a chance to get in my private class, walk over to the other side of the village and enroll at Lee Strasberg. I teach a class at Lee Strasberg. When you enroll, tell them you want to be in my class, and I'll audition you through that class. He's checking me out. I walked right down, go over to Lee Strasberg, got in there, and I got into George Loris's class, and I did what he said, which was basically to all the students, don't do anything. When you do the scene, don't do the scene. Just say the words. And I did. And after about 2 classes, he said, you can join my private class. So I took 3 months of Lee Strasberg, 2 classes there. And then I studied with George for two times. And it was good. Yeah. I didn't really meet anybody that was a connection or anything, but it was fun. But that's how I got in, use what you can.
Yeah, feel free to light up. I when I ask you a question, you have to stop, so I feel bad. Yeah, I did.
I thought it'll be cool to see.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll give you a little chance while I'm talking.
Oh, go ahead.
So I was in Cameron Thor's and Jock McDonald's acting class in Vermont.
Josh, I know Jock. Yeah, I did Terra Nova with great guy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Intense. Cool,
really good too. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. I would love to get him an interview actually too. Yeah, and that's where like we learned about the Who Am I and stuff like that. And actually it brought me to a question I wanted to ask you about. Do you have any particular kind of acting I guess style or theory that you like? Do you endow objects and stuff like that, or do you just like how do you what would you say your style is?
Well, that's goddamn good quick, because when I was starting out in doing theater, I kind of really I was doing method stuff. I sunk into it, man. And that's why I don't do it anymore, because it was freaky. But yeah, I'm sense memory stuff, inner monologue stuff. I did Buried Child, which is a Sam Shepard play, and I played a real, Sam Shepard-y part. And I remember I was living on Colchester Avenue, actually. And I would go to the PNC at night late, and I would just be that guy, and I would, freak the register person out because they could see it. So I would really worked on it. And but basically, now the stuff that I do, I just did a movie with Jay Craven called Lost Nation. It's about Ethan Allen and stuff. And I played Asa Locke, historical character. Anyway, now, I found out, Rena, it goes back to the thing we were talking about. I'm not getting huge parts anymore. I didn't go that route. I moved out of New York and I did the lager. It's the right decision. But the parts I've gotten in movies and TV are because of what I look like. Once they give me the part, I don't have to do anything. So if they say, you're a killer, Rusty, we don't get to see you kill, but you only have one scene, and they talk to you and you're killing, you light up a cigar. So if I do this, I'm the killer. I don't have to do a fucking thing. so my style is, I don't do a fucking thing.
That's good. Film likes that.
Yeah. I mean, I did a couple leads in movies, Mud Season and stuff, and then you have an arc, and you have to do, it's more complicated, let's say, than that. I wouldn't want anybody to think I'm downplaying that craft. But at the level that I was doing it, I just have to basically show up and say, Law and Order. I did 2 Law and Orders. I was a freaking arsonist in one of them, and I was a kidnapper. I kidnapped Amanda Pete. I met Amanda Pete. She was just starting out. But anyway, I get shot in the back in that one. Just because of what I look like. I didn't have to do a thing. Jerry Orbach, who I bowed down to, and Sam Waterston, they're interrogating me about burning the thing down. And they're just saying their lines, and I'm just saying my lines back to them. So I'm not having to stay up at night on those things and really study. I kind of figured that out. I take it real seriously and I'm prepared, but you rehearse, and any director, if most of the direction they're going to give most people is do it a lot less.
Yeah.
So
It's hard for a theater person to move to film. Really hard. It's like they always want to talk to the person in the back, and now you're talking to someone that's a couple inches away from you, really. It's really what it's the difference. So like you get a theater actor, I've cast movies before, and you get theater actors and they're like, oh my God, what are you talking? And if the horizon is high, it's okay. Like if it's like a wacky comedy, then you can be crazy. But like my movies, I always made some kind of horror thing or whatever, and you needed to be subtle. And that's what film likes then, so it's a hard transition if you're a theater person generally.
I can't agree with you more. And then the thing is, I did theater as a kid. I moved to New York, and when I started doing commercials, I just watched these people, and I learned what you said by just watching them. I said, I don't have to do that or whatever, I just have to go in the lens, let the lens do the work. And also your wardrobe, in the background, and the lighting. I mean, I could also light the cigar and be the guy that the girl wants to marry, Same fucking guy.
Yeah.
I like that demonstration.